If you refuse to marry me within the next 24 hours, the entirety of your father's estate will be donated to a charity in Brazil." Scarlet Hayes stared at the man on her doorstep, her black mourning dress still clinging to her like a shroud. It had been only 3 days since her father's funeral, and the old wooden house in the outskirts of Portland, Maine, felt heavier than ever under the weight of grief. She had expected mourners, or perhaps a neighbor with a casserole, not this stranger in a tailored suit, his dark hair impeccably styled, exuding the kind of polished confidence that screamed New York elite. "I'm Liam Whitaker," he said, his voice steady and devoid of warmth. "Your father's attorney, and this isn't a social call." Scarlett's hand tightened on the doorknob. Henry Hayes had been her anchor since her mother died when she was 7, a quiet man who collected rare books and lived simply in this creaky home filled with dusty shelves and faded memories. He hadn't mentioned any lawyer from the city, let alone one with such an absurd ultimatum. Why on earth would my father tie his will to marriage? She demanded, her voice cracking with exhaustion and disbelief. Liam pulled a sealed envelope from his briefcase. "This explains it, but the terms are clear. To inherit the house, the savings, and his collection valued at over $2 million, you marry me. No ceremony, no romance, just a legal contract to protect the assets." Her world tilted. $2 million. Her father had lived like a recluse scraping by on a pension. And now this. She snatched the letter, her fingers trembling as she tore it open, the familiar handwriting blurred through unshed tears. "Scarlet, there are dangers you don't know. Liam is the only one I trust to keep you safe. Marry him. It's temporary until you're secure." Liam watched her, his gray eyes unreadable, a flicker of something resignation beneath the surface. "I don't want this any more than you do," he added quietly. "But your father made me promise." Scarlet sank against the doorframe, the letter crumpling in her fist. Alone in the world, facing a stranger's demand, she had no choice but to confront the shadows her father had left behind, or lose everything he had built for her. Scarlet's fingers trembled as she unfolded the letter in the dim light of her father's old living room. The familiar scrawl of Henry Hayes's handwriting stared back at her, each word a dagger twisting in her chest. "Scarlet, my dear girl," it began. "If you're reading this, then Liam has come to you. There are shadows from my past dangers I kept hidden to protect you. I stole back precious manuscripts from those who didn't deserve them, and now they're hunting for what's mine. Liam is the only man I trust to keep you safe. Marry him. It's not forever, just until the threats pass. Forgive me, but this is the only way." She looked up at Liam, who stood motionless by the doorway, his briefcase still in hand. The rain pattered against the windows of the creaky house, amplifying the silence between them. Scarlet Hayes was 29, a high school art teacher in Portland, Maine, where life moved at the slow pace of coastal tides. She had grown up in this very home, a rambling wooden structure filled with the scent of old books and sea salt. Her mother, Eliza, had died when Scarlet was 7, lost to a sudden aneurysm, leaving Henry to raise her alone. He had been her everything, a quiet scholar who spent evenings poring over rare volumes, teaching her to see beauty in faded ink and yellowed pages. They weren't wealthy. Henry's pension barely covered the bills, and Scarlet's modest salary from teaching watercolor techniques to disinterested teens filled the gaps. But it was enough until now. "Why you?" she whispered, her voice raw. "Why would my father choose a stranger to marry me?" Liam's expression remained impassive, but a muscle in his jaw twitched. At 35, Liam Whitaker was a name whispered in the corridors of Manhattan's elite law firms. Tall and broad-shouldered with sharp features and eyes like storm clouds, he specialized in high-stakes estate planning for the ultra-wealthy. His life was a series of boardrooms and courtrooms where emotions were liabilities and deals were ironclad. He had met Henry years ago through a rare book auction, bonding over a shared passion for historical artifacts. But Henry had seen something in Liam, a steadfastness forged from a childhood of neglect, with a father who valued cases over his son, and a mother who had vanished early on. "Your father didn't choose a stranger," Liam replied evenly. "He chose someone who owes him a debt. I gave my word and I keep it." Scarlett paced the worn floorboards, her black dress whispering against the furniture. The house felt smaller, suffocating under the weight of unspoken secrets. Henry's death had been sudden, a stroke in his study surrounded by his beloved collection. She had handled the funeral arrangements alone, burying him beside her mother in the foggy cemetery overlooking the Atlantic. Now this revelation shattered the image of her father as a harmless eccentric. Thieves' manuscripts. It sounded like a thriller novel, not her life. "I can't just marry you," she said, shaking her head. "This is insane. There must be another way." Liam set his briefcase on the table and opened it, revealing neatly labeled folders. "There isn't. The will is explicit. The estate transfers only upon our marriage. Otherwise, it defaults to a charity in Brazil, one your father selected as a failsafe. The house, the accounts, the books gone. And without protection, those hunting the collection will come for you next." Her mind raced. The collection, hundreds of rare editions stacked in the attic, some dating back centuries. She had always thought them sentimental treasures, not targets. But Henry's letter confirmed the peril. They won't stop until they have it all. Scarlett sank into her father's armchair, the leather creaking under her. She had no siblings, no close family left. Her friends were scattered, her life rooted in the quiet rhythm of lesson plans and weekend sketches. Marrying this man meant uprooting everything, stepping into a world of contracts and shadows. "Fine," she said finally, her voice steadier than she felt. "But this is temporary, just until whatever this is resolves." Liam nodded, closing the briefcase with a click. "Agreed. We'll handle the paperwork tomorrow." The next afternoon, under a gray Maine sky, they stood in the sterile lobby of the Cumberland County Courthouse. Scarlett wore a simple gray sweater and jeans, her red hair tied back in a hasty ponytail. Liam in his suit looked every bit the professional executing a transaction. The clerk, an older woman with a bored expression, read the vows in a monotone. "Do you, Scarlett Hayes, take Liam Whittaker as your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do," Scarlett muttered, her heart pounding. "And do you, Liam Whittaker, take Scarlett Hayes as your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do," he replied, his tone flat. The clerk stamped the papers. "By the power vested in me by the state of Maine, I pronounce you husband and wife." No kiss, no rings, just a signature sealing their fates. As they left the courthouse, Liam opened the door of his sleek black sedan. "You'll need to pack essentials. We're relocating to Boston. My apartment there has top-tier security. I've arranged everything." Scarlett slid into the passenger seat, the leather cool against her skin. The drive south was silent, the highway blurring past pine forests and rocky shores. Boston emerged in the distance, a skyline of glass and steel. Liam's building was a high-rise in Back Bay with a doorman who nodded deferentially. The elevator whisked them to the penthouse, where floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Charles River. Scarlett stepped inside, her breath catching. The space was minimalist, white walls, chrome fixtures, a kitchen that gleamed like it had never been used. Her belongings, shipped ahead, sat in boxes in a guest room. "This is yours," Liam said, gesturing. "We'll maintain appearances for the public photos outings if needed, but in private, we keep our distance." She nodded, unpacking a sketchbook onto the bed. "Why are you doing this?" "Really?" He paused at the door. Because I promised Henry I'd protect his legacy and you, that's all. As he walked away, Scarlett sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the unfamiliar city lights. The apartment was luxurious, but it felt like a gilded cage. She was married to a man she barely knew, bound by a dead man's secrets. And in the quiet, she wondered what shadows lurked behind Liam's unyielding facade. Scarlett had barely settled into the rhythm of her new life when the cracks began to show. The Boston penthouse with its panoramic views of the Charles River and sleek, impersonal design felt more like a fortress than a home. Days blurred into a routine dictated by Liam's unyielding schedule, shared dinners at precisely 7 where conversation hovered around safe topics like the weather or her lesson plans. Occasional staged outings for the press, their arms linked in feigned affection under the flash of cameras, and long evenings where she retreated to her room, sketching furiously to escape the suffocating silence. Liam was always polite, always composed, but his presence loomed like a shadow, watching, protecting yet revealing nothing of himself. She missed the creaky floors of her father's house in Portland, the salty tang of the Maine coast, the freedom of her old life. Here, every door had a keypad, every window bulletproof glass. For your safety, Liam had said, but it felt like control. Scarlett tried to push back venturing out alone for groceries or a walk in the common, but he always knew his texts arriving like clockwork. Stay close. It's not safe yet. One evening, as dusk painted the city in shades of indigo, Scarlett returned from a rare solo trip to a nearby art supply store. Her arms ached from carrying bags of canvases and paints, a small rebellion against the sterility of her surroundings. The elevator hummed upward, and she stepped into the hallway fumbling for her keycard. But the door to the penthouse was ajar, a sliver of light spilling out unnatural in the otherwise secure building. Her heart stuttered. Liam, she called softly, pushing the door open with her foot. The living room was in disarray, a lamp overturned papers scattered across the marble floor. A muffled grunt came from the study. Dropping her bags, Scarlett rushed forward, her pulse thundering in her ears. In the dim glow of the desk lamp, Liam grappled with a burly man in dark clothing, their bodies slamming against the bookshelves. The intruder had Liam pinned against the wall, a gloved hand around his throat, while Liam's free arm strained to reach for something, a letter opener on the desk. The man's face was obscured by a ski mask, but his intent was clear violence, not theft. Without thinking, Scarlett grabbed the nearest object, a heavy brass lamp from the side table, and swung it with all her strength. It connected with the intruder's head, with a sickening thud. He staggered, releasing Liam, who gasped for air, and delivered a sharp elbow to the man's gut. The intruder crumpled to the floor, groaning. "Oh, call 911. Liam rasped, his voice hoarse, as he knelt to restrain the man, using his tie as an impromptu binding. Scarlett's hands shook as she dialed, her voice steady, only through sheer will. "There's been a break-in. Send help, hurry." The police arrived within minutes, sirens wailing through the night. The intruder, a hired thug with no identification, was hauled away in cuffs. Detectives swarmed the apartment, dusting for prints photographing the chaos. Liam, his shirt torn and a bruise blooming on his jaw, gave a concise statement. Likely connected to a client dispute. But Scarlett saw the lie in his eyes the way he avoided her gaze. Hours later, after the officers left and the door was secured with new locks, Scarlett stood in the kitchen, gripping a mug of tea that had long gone cold. The adrenaline crash left her hollow, her mind replaying the scene in vivid flashes. Liam entered, his sleeve rolled up to reveal a shallow cut on his forearm, which he dabbed with antiseptic. "This wasn't random," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Was it?" He set the cloth down, his movements deliberate. For the first time, the mask of composure slipped, revealing exhaustion etched into his features. "No," he admitted, leaning against the counter. "Sit down, Scarlet. You deserve the truth." She sank onto a stool, her legs unsteady. Liam crossed to the wall, safe hidden behind an abstract painting, one she had barely noticed before, and punched in a code. From inside, he retrieved a worn, leather-bound volume, its pages frayed and yellowed with age. He placed it on the island between them, his fingers lingering on the cover as if it were a relic. "This is what they're after," he said quietly. "A original diary from a Jewish survivor of World War II. Your father acquired it decades ago, stole it back really from black market dealers. Inside are detailed accounts of artworks looted by the Nazis, including lists of American families who profited from trading with them after the war. If exposed, it could topple fortunes, ruin reputations in finance and politics. Scandals that reach into boardrooms and even Congress." Scarlet stared at the book, her breath shallow. Her father, the gentle man who read her bedtime stories from dusty tomes, had lived a double life. "Why didn't he tell me?" she whispered, flipping open a page to see cramped handwriting sketches of hidden vaults, names crossed out in red ink. "He wanted to protect you," Liam replied, his voice softening. "After your mother's death, he buried himself in this world, recovering lost artifacts, righting old wrongs. But it made enemies, powerful ones. He trusted me because I helped him once years ago when a similar item surfaced in a case I handled. In return, I promised to safeguard you and this diary if anything happened to him." The weight of it crashed over her. Henry's quiet evenings in his study, the locked attic door she was never allowed to open at all, clicked into place. "So, the marriage, it's just a shield, to make the transfer legal and keep me under your protection." Liam met her eyes, a flicker of something vulnerable crossing his face. "Yes, but after tonight, it's clear they're getting bolder. We can't let our guard down." Scarlet reached out her fingers, brushing the diary's spine. The secrets her father had carried, the dangers he had shielded her from, it was overwhelming. But in that moment, she felt a resolve harden within her. She would uncover the truth, honor his legacy, even if it meant facing the shadows head-on. And as she glanced at Liam, bandaged and weary, she wondered if he too carried burdens he hadn't yet shared. In the days following the intrusion, the penthouse felt even more like a siege fortress. Scarlet spent hours poring over the diary in her room, its fragile pages revealing fragmented horrors, sketches of hidden bunkers, lists of looted paintings, and accusations against prominent families whose descendants now sat in corporate towers. The weight of her father's double life pressed on her, but so did the lingering adrenaline from the attack. She avoided Liam at first, retreating to her sketches to process the chaos. Yet he didn't push. Instead, he adapted his protectiveness, shifting from rigid oversight to subtle gestures that chipped away at the walls between them. One afternoon, Scarlet found him in a spare room at the back of the apartment, a space she had dismissed as storage. He was clearing out boxes, his sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded from years of disciplined gym routines. Dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through the window as he wiped sweat from his brow. "What are you doing?" she asked, pausing in the doorway. Liam straightened, holding a forgotten easel. "You mentioned you paint. I thought you might need a studio. I cleared it out better light here than in your room." He gestured to the bags of supplies, fresh canvases, tubes of oil paint, and vibrant hues brushes of varying sizes. "If it's not right, we can adjust." Scarlet stepped inside, her fingers brushing the wood of the easel. It was the first time someone had anticipated her needs without her asking. "Why?" she murmured, meeting his gaze. For a moment, the storm in his eyes softened. Because you shouldn't feel like a prisoner here, he replied simply. This is your space now. That evening, over a dinner of grilled salmon he had prepared following his meticulous schedule, they talked, not about the diary or the threats, but about her. Scarlett shared memories of her mother Eliza, who had taught her to mix colors on a palette and see the world through strokes of blue and gold. She died so suddenly? Scarlett said, her voice quiet. One day she was laughing in the kitchen, the next, gone. Dad never recovered fully. He buried himself in his books. Liam listened. His fork paused midair. For the first time, he opened up in return. My childhood was structured, he said, his tone measured. My father was a litigator, ruthless in court, even more so at home. Emotions were weaknesses to him. My mother left when I was 10. She couldn't handle it. I learned early to compartmentalize, to focus on facts over feelings. It's why I'm good at what I do. Scarlett saw the cracks, then the man behind the suit shaped by abandonment and expectation. That sounds lonely, she offered gently. He shrugged, but his eyes held hers a beat longer. It was efficient. The barriers eroded slowly through small acts. A few nights later, while fixing a flickering light on the balcony, Liam lost his footing on a loose tile. He fell awkwardly, clutching his shoulder with a sharp intake of breath. Scarlett rushed out at the noise, helping him inside to the couch. Let me see, she insisted, peeling back his shirt to reveal the swelling joint. It's nothing, he protested, but winced as she probed gently. She fetched ice and a bandage from the first aid kit he had stocked. As she wrapped his shoulder, their faces close, he murmured, I thought I was the one protecting you, but you've saved me twice now. Scarlett paused, her hands still on his skin. Maybe we save each other. From there, the evenings softened. Liam began cooking more often, experimenting beyond his rigid menu, once burning a stir-fry and laughing a rare, genuine sound that warmed the sterile kitchen. Scarlett took her turns introducing him to simple main recipes, like clam chowder, teasing him when he wrinkled his nose at the seafood. City boy, she quipped. One morning, opening the fridge for breakfast, she found a carton of almond milk, her preferred alternative to dairy, nestled beside his regular whole milk. A sticky note was attached in his precise handwriting, still convinced this is just nut water, but if it makes mornings better. She smiled, tucking the note into her sketchbook. It was a trivial thing, but it spoke volumes, the first crack in his armor, a sign he was paying attention not just to her safety, but to her. As weeks passed, their conversations deepened. Scarlett painted in her new studio, the diary's revelations fueling abstract pieces of swirling shadows and hidden lights. Liam would stop by, leaning against the doorframe to watch. That's powerful, he said, once nodding at a canvas depicting a fractured vault. Like the secrets we're guarding. She set down her brush. Tell me more about you. Why did you really agree to this beyond the promise? He hesitated, then sat on a stool. Your father saved me once. I was fresh out of law school, entangled in a case with those same black market dealers. Henry exposed them, got me out unscathed. He saw potential in me, said I reminded him of himself before the isolation set in. I owed him my career. This marriage, it's repayment. Scarlett nodded, feeling the layers peel away. Liam wasn't cold by nature. He was guarded, scarred by a life of calculated risks, where vulnerability meant loss. In turn, she shared her fears of being alone forever, of never finding the love her parents had briefly known. I always thought marriage would be for love, she confessed one night over wine. Not this. His hand brushed hers accidentally, or perhaps not, as he refilled her glass. Maybe it can be more, he said softly, then pulled back as if regretting the words. The tension built through these quiet moments, a slow burn that transformed the penthouse from a cage into something almost like home. Scarlett found herself anticipating his return from the office, drawn to his quiet strength, and Liam, for the first time in years, allowed himself to feel the pull of connection. One evening alone in her studio, she began a new portrait from memory, capturing the subtle lines around his eyes, the hint of a smile she had coaxed out. As the image took shape, Scarlett stared at it, her heart racing. Was this affection born of circumstance or something real? She touched the canvas, wondering if the man she had married as a stranger could become the one she chose for herself. The courtroom in downtown Boston hummed, with the low murmur of clerks and attorneys, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and stale coffee. Scarlett sat beside Liam in the front row, her hand resting lightly on his knee, a gesture that had become natural over the months. To the judge and the sparse audience of estate lawyers, they appeared the picture of marital unity. Scarlett, in a tailored blouse, her red hair neatly pinned, and Liam in his signature suit, exuding quiet authority. The hearing was the final hurdle to validate Henry's will, confirming the transfer of assets and the legality of their union. The judge, an older woman with wire-rimmed glasses, reviewed the documents. "Everything appears in order," she said, her voice echoing slightly. "The marriage satisfies the conditions. Once the paperwork is filed, the estate is yours. Ms. Hayes pardon Mrs. Whitaker. And should you choose to dissolve the union afterward, that's a separate matter for family court." Scarlett felt Liam tense beside her, but she said nothing, her gaze fixed on the bench. The gavel fell, sealing the proceedings. Outside, under the overcast sky, they walked in silence to the car. The threats had quieted since the intruder's arrest, leads traced back to a shadowy consortium of art dealers now under federal investigation thanks to Liam's connections. The diary was safe, locked in a vault, its secrets poised for careful revelation, through anonymous channels Henry had outlined. Back at the penthouse, Scarlett kicked off her shoes and sank onto the sofa, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows like distant stars. Liam loosened his tie and joined her, pouring 2 glasses of scotch. The routine felt familiar now, comforting in its predictability. She took a sip, the warmth spreading through her, and turned to him. "The judge mentioned dissolution," she said softly. "When this is all over, do you want that to end it?" Liam set his glass down, his gray eyes searching hers. He was silent for a long moment, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. "If you'd asked me months ago, yes," he admitted, his voice low. "This was a promise, nothing more. But now—" He reached for her hand, his thumb tracing her knuckles. "I don't want to let go. Do you?" Scarlett's heart swelled, the vulnerability in his gaze mirroring her own. "No," she whispered. "I don't." Their fingers intertwined, a simple touch that spoke volumes. No contracts, no obligations, just choice. For the first time, the space between them dissolved, replaced by a quiet promise of something real. 3 months later, the gallery in Boston's South End buzzed with the hum of art enthusiasts and soft jazz from a corner speaker. Scarlett's exhibition, titled Inheritance, filled the white walls with canvases that captured her journey, swirling shadows representing hidden secrets, fractured vaults symbolizing loss, and bursts of light evoking renewal. She moved through the crowd in a flowing blue dress, accepting compliments with a genuine smile. The diary's revelations had inspired her work, transforming pain into creation. In the back of the room, Liam lingered near a large piece of path blanketed in snow, winding from the foggy shores of Portland toward a warm, glowing horizon. He watched her, pride evident in his stance. Their life had evolved shared mornings over coffee evenings debating history, and weekends escaping to Maine where the old house now served as a retreat. The threats had fated the estate secured, but they had chosen to stay building a partnership beyond necessity. As the crowd thinned, Scarlett caught his eye across the room. He approached, his hand extended like that first rainy day on her doorstep. "Ready for the real thing now?" he asked, a soft smile playing on his lips. She took his hand, pulling him close. "I've been ready," she replied. They stood together before her final painting, the one she had saved for last two figures, walking the snowy path hand in hand toward the light. It wasn't just art. It was their story forged in shadows illuminated by choice. Scarlett leaned against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. The marriage that began as a shield had become their foundation, a testament to trust and unexpected love. And as they left the gallery, stepping into the crisp night air, they walked forward, not as strangers bound by a will, but as partners embracing whatever came next.